Yes, sir. You're Daniel?
I'm Daniel.
Nice.
I've been working on a project called Portraits in Faith. And I've been interviewing people around the world about
And what is the title?
portraits in faith.
Importance of faith.
Yes.
Nice.
And so far I've interviewed and made portraits of about 300 people
Oh, yeah.
from 17 countries.
From 1700 to 300?
17 countries.
Ah, I see. 300 people from 17 countries.
Yeah.
I see.
So this week I'm in India for the first time.
I see, I see. So, importance of faith, is that right?
Portraits.
Potency.
Portraits.
Portraits.
Portrait of faith, I see. Very, very good title. Portrait of faith. I see. Go ahead.
So I'd love to ask you, what is faith for you? What does it mean to have faith for you?
Faith for me means total acceptance based on my reason. That's the point. For me, faith is total acceptance, and I think that is precisely what the Buddha meant. Don't accept what I say, it's a concept. Don't accept anything anybody says. Test it out. And then if you are convinced, accept that. For me, that is faith.
What was the first time in your life you felt that you felt faith?
Frankly, I've got it all the time. But it was for me to realize that it's there. For instance, I've always, without the slightest doubt, I knew that everything in the world is already predetermined. It was there. And therefore, truly there is no one to do anything except doing whatever I was meant to do. So in a way, I've always had that conviction, but it was an intellectual conviction. So that intellectual conviction had to go deeper into my heart, where there is no doubt. In other words, if you gave me a lie detector test, I would come out. Do you believe in this stupid concept? I said, oh yes, totally. The event in my life was the experience that I was not doing the talking. I used to do translation for Nisargadatta for quite some time. In fact, 6 months after I saw him. But a year after that, a year after I started, almost exactly a year, it turned out that on a particular occasion I was translating, and my experience was that I could hardly wait for him to finish before I started the translation. In other words, the normal translation up to then used to have a process. Process means time, whether it's half a second, 2 seconds, or 30 seconds or 60 seconds. Because the process means time. And the process meant I had to listen carefully to what Maharaj said. Then I had to understand it, understand the significance of it. Then translate it into English, foreign language for me, and then vocalize it. So that took a certain amount of time, however short it is. But that particular morning, there simply wasn't any process. I knew exactly what Maharaj was going to say. and the translation was just coming out. I had the experience that I was not doing the translation. The translation was happening. That is the experience. And yet, the total acceptance was always there for a long time.
Was there a second time?
If the second time is needed, the first time has not happened.
That's right. Well said.
See how simple it is? Good question. What do you think is the concept of God when an atheist comes here to me and he says, Ramesh, I've gone into it very thoroughly, make no mistake. I'm not making an offhand statement, but I honestly do not believe in God. What do you think will be my response? My response will be, I entirely agree with you that God as a concept, as an individual entity, cannot exist. An individual entity means he has to have the other, me and the other. Whereas the Bible says, I am is God. So without the other. So what is I am? I am that I am. See? So and I am, the unmanifest unicity, does not need to know that it is. So when the I am and or the unmanifest unicity, unmanifest oneness, became the manifest duality of every conceivable kind, beginning with male and female, that the I am happened. I am the total manifestation. Unmanifest, there is no need. The moment there is manifestation, I am this manifestation. But for the functioning of that manifestation, that we call daily living, the basis has to be duality, beginning with male and female, and duality of every conceivable kind. Good and evil, health and disease, wealth and poverty, sage and setback. Therefore, my firm conviction has always been, the sage did not choose to be a sage. The psychopath and the murderer did not choose to be what they are. So why did they have to happen? Because the basis of the manifestation, functioning called duality, functioning called life, is duality. Therefore, beginning with male and female, everything in the universe has an interconnected opposite. Therefore, my earliest conviction has been, there cannot be anything that we call truth or love. Love, hatred, truth, falsehood. Therefore, truth or love can only be the one reality. And that as God is what I firmly believe in. In other words, I believe that the manifest could not have just happened as an accident. The unmanifest unicity has become the manifest duality. For 35, 40 years, I pursued enlightenment. At the end, I'm not an active pursuit, but sort of a deep, almost unconscious seeking of enlightenment. Ended in frustration because not even my guru nor anybody could give me answers to two basic questions. What am I serving? What am I looking for? Enlightenment. What is enlightenment? Two, more important. What will enlightenment do for me if and when I get it? Yes, right? But when I once asked my guru, he got angry because he thought I was questioning his enlightenment. Then he saw that many of the others were waiting for his answer. What is enlightenment and what will it do for me? So he calmed down and he gave me an answer which I knew would come because I had come earlier. You will know what enlightenment is and what this does for you only when you are enlightened. To know the sweetness of the mango, we have to eat it. That is the classical escape route. So, everything in the manifestation and its functioning that we call life is duality. And since I have accepted that, many questions don't arise and bother me. Why did God have to create Adolf Hitler? Because God created Jesus Christ. Why does God create handicapped children? What have the poor things done? Answer is, God is forced to create handicapped children because He creates healthy children. So such questions I don't even ask. And these are the questions which truly make a human being unhappy. I want to know. What is the answer? So for that question, my counter question is, who wants to know? Daniel, Ramesh, Gabriel, all of these are names given to a three-dimensional object. Everything in the manifestation is a three-dimensional object of various kinds. Stone, there is no apparent life. A growing plant which goes into a tree or dies down is again a three-dimensional object. The animal is a three-dimensional object in which there is life and a sense of personal identification, which is the unidentified self has attached itself, identified itself with a particular body-mind object and considered itself a separate entity. Therefore, your pet dog will not like it if you pet another dog. Daniel is mine. Is mine. Not the other way around. As far as the dog is concerned, Daniel is mine. And then there is the human being, who is an animal, life, and the ego. But in the human ego, as different from the animal ego, the human ego has an additional factor, which is the crux of the matter, the sense of personal doership and intelligence, intellect, which makes him ask questions and become unhappy if he doesn't get answers. But all four are individual body-mind organisms, which is a three-dimensional object, in which has been induced by the soul life, five senses, intelligence, and most important, the sense of personal doership. I do whatever I do, I am responsible for my action. You, the other, are responsible for your action. And each of us will be punished by God if we don't do what God has ordered us to do. Isn't that the usual idea of God? Out there sitting with a huge computer, jotting down every sin that we have committed. And that I totally reject. And which is what the atheist does. For me, God means impersonal consciousness, unicity, or impersonal energy, unicity, which is functioning through 6 billion human objects and bringing about whatever is supposed to happen according to thy will be done. I said according to God's will or a universal law, a cosmic law. That satisfies the atheist. Impersonal source. But the impersonal source, then the next question I ask myself, why did the impersonal source have to create a manifestation? Why did the unmanifest source have to create a manifestation? And the only answer I could get was the unmanifest unicity was forced to create the manifestation. Why? Because the unmanifest source cannot be dead matter. Therefore, the unmanifest source I envisage as my concept mind as potential vibrant energy. Otherwise, it will be dead matter. So I conceive of the source as potential throbbing energy. And the only way the potential throbbing energy can know that it is potential energy will never know, and therefore it will be dead matter unless it activizes itself sometime. Therefore, God, the impersonal source, the potential energy, it was the nature of that potential to activize itself sometime. Therefore, the Big Bang and the manifestation. And when the manifestation happened, there was the sense, I am this manifestation. And that I am, for the functioning of manifestation that we call daily living to happen, was forced to create a duality, beginning with male and female. Call it Adam and Eve, or Hindu call it Shiva Shakti. In other words, Shiva, as the unmanifest singularity, could not become manifest as Shiva, the manifest. In the manifestation, Shiva had to be Shiva Shakti, Shiva Parvati. The female had to come in as energy.
I have one last question.
Please,
Yeah.
please.
What is...
Let us see if it is going to be the last one or
Yeah,
not.
that's true. That's true. Life is a series of last questions.
Go ahead.
What is your greatest wish?
You really want to know?
It's a bit of a setup.
None. Honestly, none. If I drop dead next minute, I'll welcome it. That's an answer for you, isn't it? But there being no question in this body-mind organism, is a happening, not my achieving, which is the real point. The basic question is, what do I want in this life? what do I, Ramesh, want in this life, in the circumstances in which I have been placed, over which I have never had any control. And honestly, I think the answer to that is enlightenment, which I came to know when I retired at 60 and said, no more enlightenment. Stupid. All I want for the rest of my life, however short or long it is happiness. Happiness for Ramesh. The ego, selfish, yeah. Therefore, I pursued happiness, and I got it, or rather, it was my destiny to get it. So, what I'm going to do is try to tell you the process in which it happened. First, I decided, what is it that I want? From the beginning, happiness. But surely, I know what enjoyment is. I may not have enjoyed all the enjoyments in life, but I still know what is enjoyment. That is the opposite of pain. So I know what enjoyment is, and yet I am seeking happiness. Therefore, the most important question to start with, what is this happiness I am seeking, which has to be totally different from the enjoyment I've had as against pain all my life. See what I mean? And that was the most important question. What is the happiness which this spiritual seeker is supposed to seek and pursue? See what I mean? Then the answer came, the happiness I am seeking has nothing to do with the pleasure in life. Pleasure in life is the opposite of pain. And both pain and pleasure is the result of a happening in life. A happening happens, in which another is required as a duality. And that will bring me happiness, pleasure or pain. Everything, in other words, the pleasure I am seeking is something which happens in life. And if I begin my search for happiness, I have to accept that the happiness I am seeking has nothing to do with the pleasure in life. Therefore, the happiness I am seeking has nothing to do with what happens in life. Honestly, the most important thing. Then I felt my process blocked. So what is the happiness I am seeking? Which is not to be found in what happens in life. What happens in life, I have no control. But as Ramesh, a separate entity, there is my attitude to life. So the most important question and answer was, the happiness I am seeking has nothing to do with what happens in life, but in my subjective attitude to life. And then, very difficult question, what do I mean by my attitude to life? Where do I look for my attitude to life? And the answer I came to was, my attitude to life, a very philosophical subject. In active practice means my relationship with the other, whoever the other is. My closest relative or the total stranger. So what is my attitude towards the stranger? Suspicion, fear. Is he going to be a friend or a foe? And how many times have we not come across reports in daily newspapers of a father having killed a son having killed the father, A brother has killed a brother. A friend has killed a friend. So why does that happen? Because the father and son, certain circumstances made them not father and son, but father versus the son, or one son, one entity, one ego against the other, however close the relationship or however distant. So I came to the conclusion, Daniel, honestly, I came to the conclusion it is stupid to seek happiness which depends on a totally harmonious relationship with the other, and almost the natural relationship between me and the other has got to be fear and suspicion and rivalry. So again, without any personal objection to God as the entity, without any pride of having come to this conclusion, I said that is a fact of the matter. So I decided, foolish to seek happiness. I have to be satisfied with accepting the pleasure when it happens, enjoy it, suffer the pain when it happens. Then an important question arose, which arose later, when at that point I had something from outside. From outside can only mean God. And something coming from that has to be conceptually on a personal scale. So what came to me from outside is, you're wrong. It has never been my intention for the human being to suffer. It has always been that the human being, the birthright of the human being is the happiness which he is seeking. Only thing is that happiness is based on one factor which the human being has not accepted. That's why he is not happy. That's where it ended. And suddenly it also proved. And that factor is the basis of every religion. Earlier I had considered this question and come to the conclusion there cannot be a single basis for every religion. Otherwise we wouldn't have had religious wars for hundreds of years. But now the answer from the source is, there is a common basis for all religion, and that is the one factor on which my happiness is based. And then I happened to come across 4 beautiful words from the Bible, which I had come across hundreds of times before, but they had made no real impression on my heart. In fact, the heart said, stupid. And that is, thy will be done. Now it went straight to my heart. I said, how fantastic. That is true. I may want something, you may want something, but who will get it does not depend on his effort. Ultimately, it is God's will, or the will of the source. And then I remembered the words in the Bhagavad Gita. You don't have to worry about killing your preceptors. As time, I've already killed them. Therefore, thy will be done is not strictly correct. Thy will has been done. Thy will has been done. Therefore, the movie is already in the can. And what we are viewing is the same movie, but frame by frame by frame, day by day, hour by hour, second by second. But even the physicist has accepted that with the Big Bang, the entire manifestation was created as a block. The physicists say as a block. The fan, when it's working at the highest speed, You may feel the air, but you can't really see it. And the slower the fan, the more clearly we see the blade. So, that was the end of my search.